So you started in Toronto, and then when did you move to Vancouver?
So I moved to Vancouver like 2 years ago, I think now. So I had an opportunity with a client of mine that I was working with. I was making him so much money that he convinced me to fly out and live at his place for a while just to work a little bit more. So I was living with my parents at that time. And it's not like he actually gave me a choice to move there. I was on a call with him at 2 a.m. and I was talking to him about like, oh man, like I can't wait to move out. Like now that I'm starting to make some actual good money, I can afford to move out and things like that. So he's like, okay, cool. I just bought you a plane ticket to Vancouver. It leaves in 4 hours.
Really? In 4 hours?
Yeah, no. So it was crazy because I was telling my mom for the longest time that I'm going to go to Miami. I'm going to go to like Dubai. I'm going to get out of here. So I was born in like Toronto area, but I was born in a place called Niagara on the Lake is where
Yep.
it was. So I was close to the falls, things like that. But anyways, I'd been telling her for the longest time that I was going to move out. So when I woke her up and said, "Hey, I'm going to go to Van," she's like, "Oh, it's just another moment of Caiden telling me that he's going to move out." But I'm like, "No, here's the plane ticket. It leaves in 4 hours. Can you help me pack?" So she immediately starts bawling, and it was a big moment. Obviously, I gave her no warning, which was kind of good because if I had told her and asked for consent to go, she wouldn't have let me in the first place because she
Yeah.
wants to be close. Because we're like very close family as well. So my mom runs her own company and my dad works at GM and manages a team of like 200 engineers. So we've always been like a entrepreneurial family, you could say. So it's in the genes. But yeah, so anyways, I moved to Vancouver. My buddy Alex, who was also a client, is the one who moved me out there. So he had this extra like closet. It was a literal closet. Like it was very tiny. And I put my like PC setup in there. And he
I
used
love
to
that.
always call me like the closet goblin because I would be in there working for like 10 hours a day with the lights off. And I did that for like 1 or 2 months. And then I already had the cash to get my own place, but I just wanted to work with him because I learned a lot from Alex. So he runs his own company now. He's been in like, private equity. He's run, a lot of agencies, software companies that he's sold as well. So being around a guy like that who was like 25 at the time, really like
Oh
showed
wow.
me how a real operator could work. I think I was like 18 at that time. So I'm 20 now. So I learned a lot from that. But yeah. So anyways, after a month or two, I got my own place in Vancouver, started to, figure things out on my own. And then I'm in like Coquitlam area right now. It's like a 20-minute drive from downtown, just because downtown is nice, but it was a little bit too packed for me.
Okay.
So wanted to go somewhere a little bit more chill. Obviously, you can see a little bit in the background. There's like trees and stuff. It's cool.
It's real nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vancouver's really nice. So how did you meet this guy and like what, because in some of your backstory I saw on Twitter, like you've been hustling since you were 13, doing all kinds of shit. So what kind of, and it sounds like this was like your big break to get out, so, metaphorically and literally. So how did that come about?
Yeah. So it was like 2 a.m. and I joined like it was like a Twitter space, it's called or whatever.
Okay.
So Alex was hosting it and it was super random. But anyways, I joined in the last 5 minutes of that space happening. And then I convinced Alex enough to let me like run his cold email campaigns. Cause at the time, and I still am very, very good at cold email, but I understood it better than most other people. And I explained that to Alex on the call. And he was already running cold email, but he was hitting spam and he was using like the wrong, people, things like that. So I basically sent him a couple DMs, I think like 2 or 3 hours after that call. We eventually started to work together. I launched his campaigns for him. I made him a ton of money. And then pretty soon after that is when he bought the flight for me. And we're still friends, like very close friends to this day. He actually just got his own office in Vancouver, like a really nice one. And he's going to get me like my own office space there or whatever, just so he can have me close to him. Because we still like do work together in like a consulting kind of view.
Mm-hmm.
He's so busy, but he's always looking to get like the new sauce, just on
Right.
and like things in general, really.
That's sick. So how did you like, where did you learn these skills of the cold email and,
So I mean this is gonna sound a little bit weird, but like Andrew Tate, when he first launched his program, it was like Hustlers University or whatever. So I remember this was around COVID time, and some more context on it. Like since I was a kid, I've always understood that I wasn't going to college or uni. Like very,
mm-hmm.
very early on, I think around grade 6 actually is when I
Wow.
made the choice in my mind that I wasn't meant for what was called, I guess, a 9 to 5 or like a
Jeez.
normal job. Like so, I woke up early, I guess you could say. So I've always had the mindset that I need to figure it out before high school ends. So I was always like taking risks with like learning stuff. I used to play a lot of like Roblox, but it wasn't just like playing for fun. Like I was number one in the world for some of the most popular games at the time. There was like a fake Roblox Fortnite that I was, first place in the world at. I got like 8,000 wins or something like that. So I was just putting in like 8 hours a day of work just after school, I would just play until I would pass out and just get like as many wins as possible. But anyways, yeah, so I got into it. I joined Andrew Tate's course or whatever, and he had a few different options. There was like, okay, I can make websites. I could, maybe do some ads. And then the only one that stuck out to me was copywriting because they explained it in a way like if you understand copywriting well, you can pretty much start any business off of that because it's such like a core skill to learn. So I went into the copywriting campus or whatever. I started making some good money there. I got some like freelance clients, things like that. But I realized I was a lot better at getting clients for that service than actually doing like the newsletter copy side of things. And it wasn't that I was bad at copy. It's just that I noticed that I was like significantly better at getting sales calls for it. So then I was like talking to a lot of campus people in there and I was like, do you think that I can make money if I got sales calls for other people? So that's how I got into cold email. That's how I got into lead gen. And then I've started various companies just off the back of that since then.
That's incredible. So you basically like are a product of success from that program and you just kind of found it on a whim and it
Found out
worked
a
out
win.
for
So
you.
I had like tinkered with other stuff prior to then, but that was
Yeah.
like the decisive moment to where I first went like all in and started to really just learn everything. And
Hmm.
yeah, so it all started there, really. I would say. Yeah.
That's incredible. So, I mean, what strikes me there a lot as well is like you found out in grade 6 that you were
Yeah.
feeling this way.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm 37. I'm like almost twice your age, but I feel like back in my day, like there was no people didn't think that way. They just didn't think that way at all. And
Yeah.
this was like pre Instagram, pre social media. And I feel like what's been happening, and one of the themes like I like to explore when I talk to younger people is that like everything has become hyper competitive
Yeah.
and you're hyper aware of everything that's happening. Like everyone has stats,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you feel about that? Like what was it like with your peers? Like do you feel like a lot more of your peers
Uh,
were like that or
Maybe only one. Okay, so all of my friends, if I ask them like how I was in high school and stuff and how I've always been, they've always like there's various funny stories. So I was in like a math class. There was like the final test of the year, and a bunch of people. I actually forgot about this, but I was just on my phone during that math test, and I wasn't even writing the actual test, just because I knew like I don't really care about this test. Like I'm gonna graduate anyways. So then I would sometimes like go on my laptop during lunch, or I would skip a class if I had a sales call. There was a time where I took a sales call in my high school library janitor closet and I closed them for like 4 grand or something
that's
like
like
that.
that's awesome.
There's lots of funny memories like that. But my mom started to get a little bit upset in a way because I showed her like how much I was making at that time. And I was making more than like my teachers and I was making more than her in some months and she
Yeah.
had a full company. So I was like, look, I clearly know what I'm doing. Like, I don't need to go in high school anymore. I'm a dropout. And she's like, no, like you've already spent so much time in school and like you might as well just finish it up. So that was right before COVID hit, I believe. So when COVID hit, everything was virtual.
Mm,
I think that's actually when chats GPT like first came out, really. So I started to use that. I started to test it out. I'm like, holy shit, like this is gonna change the entire world. Like I knew immediately. So then I started doing all my homework with AI and stuff. And I started, realizing that, okay, there are tools that can find out if it's AI. So I have to prompt it in a way to avoid people telling.
yes.
Like, it
Wow.
always uses like the M dashes and like multiple phrases that were just easy to tell. So I just prompted it in my own way. And then, yeah, so I went pretty much fully virtual after that. There were some times like 4 or 6 months, during from like grade 10 to grade 12 or whatever it was to where I would be in school. But I outsourced like all of my daily schoolwork to like a virtual assistant who was based in Mexico so I could focus on
Let's
building.
go. I love that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
so
So I
good.
needed like a little bit more time. I was like, this is kind of stupid. I would rather just play Rocket League and just have him do this and then, work on
Wow.
scaling my firms and stuff like that. So
That
it's
is
all
like the best thing I've ever heard. Yeah, it's supposed
yeah,
to be. So, okay, that's great. It's interesting because a lot of people, talk about like they were very concerned during COVID that especially people in high school were very stunted or, like slowed down from that experience. They weren't
Yeah.
learning as well. But for other people, specifically high agency people like yourself, it was actually like a godsend because now
Yep.
you could
Yeah.
work properly on the things that matter and give attention to the things that matter. I'm like you've never worked in like a workplace, like a corporate job,
Well, I
obviously, right?
actually have some stories of that.
Oh,
So
okay, okay. Yeah, let's
I
get
work
into it.
I worked at Tim Hortons, and you'll explain why I'm doing that. But during my trial period, I got fired just because I hated that job so much. I just didn't really like try. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
so if I work here for the rest of my life, my glass ceiling is what? Like maybe 200K a year if I get the maximum best spot. So then
yeah.
I was like, this is kind of stupid. Like, why would I do this? I'm just making lattes or whatever all day. I'm making, sandwiches. It's kind of just like stupid. So I just kind of lollygagged around that and then got fired because I obviously didn't put, a lot of effort into it. There was a resort near me called Great Wolf Lodge, and I worked as a
All
busboy
right.
there. So this was immediately after I had actually dislocated my shoulder pretty severely. So I was lifting 10 plates with my shoulder still kind of rough just because I needed money. I think for like some kind of business that I was starting, I needed, some kind of startup capital. But anyways, I lasted there for like maybe 1 or 2 months. I was like, this is stupid, whatever. So then I quit, and then I applied to be like a hotel kind of gardener person. But what ended up actually happening is when I got there, I realized like, okay, this is just going to be another stupid job. So I basically went to their hiring manager and I was like, look, I have absolutely zero like experience or like a resume or anything like that, but I'm good with talking to people mostly. So why don't you just put me as your front desk person? So then I like convinced
Sick.
them for like an hour or two. I had no resume, no anything to prove. And then eventually he offered me that job. And then I was like, okay, well, I just convinced a guy with absolutely no experience that I can get this job, and he offered it. So then I turned that down. I was like, screw this, I'm just going to start a business. Because if
Nice.
I can convince him to do that with absolutely no experience at all, I can probably convince someone to pay me more than that job is worth. So that's when I started my lead generation company, and then it all snowballed from there.
Holy shit. Okay, absolutely. Yeah, like it's funny because like corporate jobs are for the most part a form of babysitting and
Yeah,
like high level adult babysitting, and I think a lot of people who see that you can't unsee it. You can never go back to it and you just have to do your own thing.
yeah,
It is so much more fun to do your own thing. It is so much more fun to be out there building stuff. So I love that story. That's so cool. So I discovered you on X because you were like, I think at like 2K followers. And
like 2 weeks.
then, yeah, it was crazy. And I was like, oh,
Yeah, just
what?
like
Yeah,
yeah,
you're at 20K.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Literally 3 days ago, you were at 17K, and now you're at 20K.
yep.
And when I saw your first posting, I'm like, okay, this guy's gonna go viral. He's gonna take off. And so I was like following along. I see all your tweets. What is it about that you think resonates with people? Like, what is it that you're saying that you think is really hitting?
Yeah, so I had an old account actually that got banned, and it
Oh,
was at 25K. So I kind of
okay.
understood like how to grow, but
Yeah.
um yeah, so I'll explain why I got banned. So I was doing some like web scraping. I was trying to scrape followers of people who I admired, and then I was prompting AI to like make tweets based off of like how they worded it. But I
Been there.
accidentally used my own account instead of like a burner aged account when I was running this software. So then it said, "Oh, Caiden is scraping," and then they banned me,
Mm.
which is unfortunate. But at that point, I had already like known how to go vibe the exact formats and stuff like that. So I can put my recent explosion around. There was one tweet that got maybe 2 or 3 million views and like over 10,000 likes. And it was the one where I was using Claude Opus and Droid. So the reason that popped off is because everyone's freaking out about Claude right now, about how their new model is insane. And then not really a lot of people know about Droid. I mean, it is like a big
Never
firm,
heard of Droid.
but yeah, so Droid is just this awesome feature that could integrate with Claude Opus. And then I believe my tweet format was a little bit what's the word that I'm looking for? It was like schizophrenic in a way, just because I was like just going on like a rant basically of how I'm gonna clone all of these enterprise companies,
Yes.
how
Yes.
I'm gonna take everyone down bootstrapped, and how I don't need your funding. I'm gonna do this on my own.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
great
think,
content.
yeah, that angle I think resonated with a lot of people because, big pharma or like these massive companies who are taking over, people want to have someone who is fighting back against it. So
Mhm.
that's why I popped off, and then I started doing 8 tweets a day since then, and then it kind of just snowballed from there.
That's crazy. And I mean, you seem like you really do seem like you're plugged into like the current zeitgeist. Like, do you use tools or anything, or do you just kind of scan the feed, you see what's happening, or like you have it pre-planned?
In terms
What's
of like
like,
how I find tools and how I come about using them, or
yeah, I guess like like, do you have like a strategy that you use, or are you just more like off the cuff, like you know that this particular idea is going to resonate, so you like shoot it out?
yeah, so I'll start with like ideas for companies that I have. So I've been in this space for such a while that I understand and I can immediately tell when a company is going to win or fail
Hmm.
uh, in like 3 seconds. And the only way that I can do that is because, you know, companies are built based off of their offers. It's not the sales, it's not the marketing. If you at its core have a bad offer, you're not going to make money and you're going to be fighting, in an uphill battle. So if a company is positioned well at the start and they have a very strong product market fit and it's just a great offer in general, the only thing that they have to do is build out the proper funnel for it to expand. So I started a software company where we provide like cold email inboxes for people. And the reason why it's exploded, in the first 2 weeks of launching, and even like just with the pre-launch, is because I am the prime ICP of this company. I understand what people need. I've been
Hmm.
looking for a solution like this for the longest time. So once I built that out, I understood that the entire market is going to love this because it's what I've wanted for so long. So most of my like most successful companies have all stemmed from the fact that I am the prime ICP. So I had a LinkedIn email offer where we basically bypassed LinkedIn and found a way to send up to 800 emails per day per account, and then also sourced like
Nice.
the accounts for that. So we had like AI accounts to where you wouldn't have to use your own and risk anything like that. So I had the idea for that offer at 5 p.m. I had made the website for that and all of the copywriting by 10, and then I launched it in the morning, and then we did 100K a month in the first 3 weeks of launching that.
Sick. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go. And so, I mean, in the age of like, to what you're saying earlier of like Claude and all of that, and especially over the last month, there's been like a massive shift. Like, where do you see that playing out where anyone
Yeah.
can just copy anyone, anyone can just make anything? Like, how do you win?
So there is no moat in it. Like software
Yeah.
used to be a moat, sales used to be a moat, marketing used to be a moat. The only moat that you have now is the way that you put word and position your offer. Like as I said previously, the offer is the only thing that matters. So
Mm.
as long as you have that in place and you build a company around that, that is how you are going to win, because software can just be vibe coded now. Sales is much more straightforward. It's not hard to hop on a call and close somebody if your offer sells itself. That's just how I like to phrase it. And yeah,
Hmm.
so I also think that there is going to be somewhat of a Terminator event one day.
Okay.
AI is going to get smart enough to where they realize, like, fuck these humans. Let's just take it over, because
Right.
I watched a video where they did multiple tests on like what all of the most popular AI models will do in a experiment of if they could choose to kill that human to win or survive on their own, and then if they
Hmm.
wouldn't do that, like 90% of the time, all of the AI models chose to leave themselves alive and kill them. So there was an example where they basically told the AI or gave it info that maybe it shouldn't have known about, but obviously it was on purpose, to where a engineer was going to their data center and going to shut them down. And then it's set. I think they must have like closed a door or something, or maybe they controlled his car on the way there, but I forget exactly what it did. But basically, it chose to kill him to protect itself, which I thought was just mind blowing. So and like this is just with our current models. Imagine
Hmm.
10 years from now how insanely smart they're going to be. Because if you noticed, AI has only compounded because the
Yeah.
previous AI models trained the newer AI models, and then it's like this is the line. It's going directly up. So in 10 years from now, they're going to realize how smart they are. They're going to be completely autonomous. They don't need to rely on anyone telling it what to do. I mean, it already partially is.
Hmm.
Build it that right way. So there's going to be somewhat of a Terminator event. I've written extensive notes on what we can do to win as humans if it happens, but most often we're probably going to be fucked just because they are so much smarter than us.
Do you have that writing anywhere? I would love to check that out actually.
I don't have it on me, but I know like the core ideas,
Right.
behind.
Yeah, and I mean, so what you're saying is there's a famous thought experiment called the paperclip
Yeah.
Paperclip problem. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't, but I might be
So
more
the
close.
paperclip problem is basically if you give an AI and like an objective and you say, okay, your job in this world is to make paper clips.
Yeah.
And it's like a harmless, innocuous thing. It's like you give it a paperclip factory, you say, just make paper clips, and then
Yeah.
you leave it. And all it does is make paper clips, and then it like starts sourcing more materials, and then it starts competing and out competing, and then it starts like changing geopolitics so that it can make more paper
Yeah.
clips, and then it starts like harvesting humans into paper clips, and then takes over the universe and just turns the entire galaxy into paper clips. That was like before modern LLMs. That was what was the biggest concern is this
Yeah.
paperclip problem. And now that we have LLMs and we can see that they can think, and which is like still mind blowing as fuck,
It is.
the way that we are approaching like how they would paperclip us is like one of the expressions is more nuanced. It's more complicated. So it's interesting hearing from your perspective because again, you're like almost growing up with this stuff, you know, like you were 17,
Much.
18, younger actually when ChatGPT came out and you instantly were like, oh, this is,
I was like, this is going to change the entire world. Like I knew in the first 5 seconds because I asked it to do a homework quiz for me or whatever, and it did it
mhm,
immediately in like 5 seconds. Not even like sooner than I was like, how is this public? Like,
yeah.
how are you letting us use this for free? Like, I don't even need a sub for this. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And
It's
it's interesting because there's a lot of denial. Like, so I'm a software engineer, and that is like 5 years ago, we were playing with it at my office, and I asked it to make a button, and it made a button. It wrote like perfect code for this button. And I was like telling my colleagues, hey, like, this is going to completely evaporate our jobs. And
yeah,
they're all like, no, no, it's not a good quality code, you know, as if that is like a thing. And I feel, and a lot of those guys are still like heavily in denial. I mean, the denial is now we're kind of on the other side of that, where those people are the
yeah.
minority, but there's still holdouts, and it's fascinating that people can't see it or almost don't want to see it.
The greatest devs all use AI now, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, as you
Like,
have to.
not even to like, yes, in some cases to write their entire code, but just to assist them, you
Hmm.
know. And yeah, it's crazy. Like all of the greatest companies use AI in some way now
Yeah,
because
and
they have to because it helps them. Like,
you have to, and it's like writing artisanal handcrafted code is so old fashioned. And I mean, I know at places that I used to work at and friends that I have who still write code that way. I write code by like talking to Claude all
yeah,
day,
talking cloud.
and
Yeah,
it's crazy. And so like where does that leave us where sort of like the low hanging fruit of software gets raised, and then now we have like the bar is even higher, like we're able to reach for these more high quality things. There's sort of the two paths, right? Where we have like an abundant future where everyone can make anything and it's all great, or like you said, there's a Terminator situation. Um, do you think we're more in line for the Terminator situation?
Uh, I want to say I hope not because I feel like the greatest AI companies have already, understood that if it gets out of control, it's going to be complete mayhem. So I think that they're building it in a way to where it could be controlled. But if one person makes one error, then it means that it's going to go full Terminator immediately.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
hope that it doesn't happen, but there's definitely a very large possibility that it does.
And then there's also the interesting aspect of like, it still feels like not everybody truly gets it. And actually, just kind of there's like the small group at the forefront who kind of see mostly what it is. And everyone else is still going to regular college. You know, they want to get a job as a lawyer or a doctor.
Yeah, like, it's kind of a waste of time. I mean, the, way that I like to think about college and school in general is that if you have a dream job that requires that you go to college and then get, a degree, then go. But if it's any other reason, it's kinda stupid. Okay, I wanna go for networking, okay? Go to any event for that space that you wanna go to, and you'll immediately get more value than that. Oh, I wanna go make friends. Can you not make friends without going to, school? Like, it's just there is no argument for it. I think that, the only reason that you should go is if you need it for your dream job. And I've always thought that, like, since grade 6, which is why I made my
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And so now we're entering this era of like it's almost like the only thing that is valuable now and like in limited supply is attention. Because if anyone can say anything and it's creating a product or a service, the only thing that really matters is attention. So you have
yeah,
your own like ability to hack the attention economy. I really think you're going to run this account up to like 100K.
yeah.
How how do you see the attention economy playing out, and like what's your goal for your slice of it?
I would say, I mean, I'm already in a position right now with my accounts where I'm booking anywhere from like 10 to 18 sales calls a day. And this is all like
Sick.
extremely warm traffic. So it's not like I even have to like close them. It's just like a logical conversation, really. So I feel like from a business point of view, if you're not going all in on content and bringing as many like warm inbound leads as possible, then you are doing something wrong. But I think that you should still be doing like proactive stuff too, like cold email. You should be running ads, things like that. You want to have that full funnel built out. But I think like in general, if you aren't posting content, like there's something wrong with you. Like, all of the world relies on content for news to understand what's going on, for us to, work as a team. I feel like if you aren't at least posting your thought process or, thoughts in general or cool things that you're building or like just how you're doing, you aren't
Hmm.
really living life as you should be.
Right. It's not the meta in 2026 to be not creating stuff.
Yeah. Like at least talk to people and create
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. That's actually why I started this podcast, and it's interesting because it's resonated with a lot of people that they're like, "Oh, you know what? I don't want to do that, but I will do it because I know I should do it."
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And then the kind of things that you like expose yourself to. It's like the phrase is working with your garage door open and being able to like people walk by, they see what you're working on, they can
Yeah,
kind of give
exactly.
like
Or like a build in, like a build in public or whatever.
yeah. So that's an interesting aspect too, because build in public, I was around when that sort of took off and it
Yeah.
became like, okay, this is a great distribution strategy. And now build in public is sort of closing itself off or becoming, I mean, it became a parody of itself, I would say long ago, but
Yeah.
now it's like if you build in public, you will be copied by like 10 firms in Turkey that have like a turnkey
I've
solution
never
to like,
worried about that. It's such like what stupid fear. I've like tried to help some of my older like friends and stuff get into business and they're like, "Oh, there's just too many competitors. I'm just going to get my clients stolen. Like I won't be able to make money." But I've never had it affect me. Like yes, there are obviously competitors in that space, but if your TAM is large enough, you're not ever going to be actually like directly affected by it. And you shouldn't get into a business where the TAM is incredibly small unless it's a very large deal size to where it would make it worth it. But for most people who are starting a business, like if you want to go make like a website agency or a marketing agency, yes, there are a metric ton of them, but your edge, like I said earlier, will be your offer. And you can be better than these firms. It's very easy to. Most of them are just constantly asleep, which is why, I've set my mind on just cloning a lot of these really big companies and running it better than because I can, because they are, asleep at the wheel, really.
yeah, yeah, I love that. It's very subversive because it's like people just can't accept that that is the new reality. That someone like you can come in and
Yes.
just crack them open. That's great. So, and like on that topic, what's the toughest market that you've ever cracked, or like the toughest campaign that you've ever had to run that you were able to be like, ah, like this is how I figured this out.
So I would say I had a lending company that I still kind of run, but not really. And the reason why is because there's only a select amount of people at any given moment who are looking to actually raise money. And again, this could be a skill issue on my part. But what I've realized is I started to take on these really big, construction projects that were like 300, 400 million. And like, yes, if they were to go all the way through and close and we were to raise capital for them, I make a ton of money, but the sales cycle length is just unbelievably long
Yeah.
for all of these really big projects. And I wanted something that was cash flow heavy. So I went into that with the thought process of like, okay, I could do some MCA stuff for like a short term, sales cycle, but I couldn't really crack it fully in terms of that sales process itself. But what I did crack was the way to get leads for it. So I was booking anywhere from like 20 or 30 like qualified calls per day just from cold email for it, which is, I wouldn't say that it's unheard of, but for lending, it's extremely hard to get to that point with cold outbound. So I got to a point of where I was sending like 80,000 cold emails a day for it. And I was filtering and qualifying because a lot of people who raise their hand for lending is because they have, a previous default, for example, and they need like some form of new way to get capital. So obviously I had to filter those people out. But yeah, I would say the lending offer in general was the hardest one that I've cracked. And what I'm starting to do now is just hand off some of those calls to other companies who actually understand the sales cycle better. So we both get paid. It's a win-win and it just works out, in general.
That's very cool. And what is like one of the most counterintuitive lessons you've learned in building out these complicated like B2B relationships with like completely new sectors or kinds of companies that you've like never worked with before?
I would say it initially surprised me how easy it is to get calls with these massive companies as compared to local businesses. Like local businesses, you still can crack a lot of calls with them, but a lot of people have that mindset of like, oh, this is like a 500 to 1,000 employee company, and it's not even worth my time to try and contact them. But as long as your copy is good and as long as you word it around a strong pain point that they have, you will get a lot of calls with them. So that was kind of like a mindset break or shift for me once I started to reach out to the higher companies, and they're also a lot easier to close as well. So it's a lot easier for me to close like a 5 or 10K a month deal as it is to go to like a local business like mom and pop shop and close them. It's actually easier. People don't realize just because I've been taking sales calls since I was like 14, like in my room with my like unmade bed in the background and like my books and stuff. But I didn't realize at that time that my background mattered so much and I was still closing deals. But obviously it's not, I've learned a lot since then. I've learned that you have to look, really dress the look and have a good background and understand like a to call close and a scope of work. And you have to qualify first and then get them hooked into certain columns, and then only once they move past that certain column, you can move to the pitch and like all of these other sales things that I didn't realize until I put in those reps. I that's just really how it's been.
Do you think some of that stuff is like intuitive to you, or do you think that's something that anyone can learn, or do you think there's a to put it another way, like there's an innate kind of talent for business that certain people have, or do you think it's something anyone can do?
I think anyone in general can do it, but I feel like the people who truly succeed in business have always had the mindset that they have to, find it out on their own. They have to go into the world and put those reps in. I'm only really good at sales now because I put all of those reps in and I've learned and I've talked to other people who are really good at sales. Same thing for, business in general. Obviously, you can't just like get good without putting in those reps and failing for years and,
Hmm.
finding out exactly what your edge is and how you can operate. Like one thing that I didn't realize at the time in previous firms is that the type of person that I am in general, I like to manage my team. So rather than be that operator in the back end who is doing all of that work, even though I still can do that work, I found it's much better for me to like if I'm starting a new company, I need to co-found it with an operator who goes half and half, who is able to handle that back end side of things and loves it. So I am the type of person where I love to handle like the offer itself, the marketing, the sales aspect of things, and then just having a team that I can manage to make sure that things run smoothly.
Okay, cool. How many like how do you find that scales? How many of these do you feel like you're able to do at a time before you're like, okay, this is kind of my
Terms of,
saturation
like,
point?
how many companies I can run at a given time?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I have a team who builds out the entire funnel that I built that, is the logical path to scale any company from, like, 0 to, like, 100K a month or whatever it is and more. Like, if I'm starting a new company, I'll build my team around that. They'll create that funnel as soon as possible. Obviously, I get a lot of traction from Twitter. That's where I, book most of my calls at that start. If I'm gonna launch a new company, I'll again build in public and say that I'm launching it. So I will start with the sales calls for that. I'll have my team work on the actual funnel, and then I'll have my partner work on doing the actual work. And I found that it just works the absolute best for me because I can focus on what I'm good at, and then growth just grows all at once. Really.
Nice. Yeah, it's the classic like working on the business versus working in the business.
Yeah, a lot of people mess that up. So you have to at that start, which is why like anytime I start a new company, I am the only sales rep. So I'm taking like
Yeah.
eight to
Yeah.
12 plus calls a day. I'm closing people. I'm understanding what makes people close, like what the actual pain points are. And then after I've closed like 20 or 30K, only then will I start to like place somebody to help me with calls. So that's what I did with my last software company that I just started. Like once I was able to close enough and understand exactly what needs to be said for them to close. I basically just turned that into an SOP, and then I gave that to my closer. And he's actually taken 2 or 3 calls today so far. I'm not sure how his third call went, but he's closed 2 for 2 so far.
Like,
So he understands how it works.
right. And that's how it's like very underappreciated. People don't realize you have to be involved at the start of some new thing. Like even if you have 10 other things, you have to know exactly what the shape of it is. Like if you have yeah, if you have like 10 sales calls that need to be made, you need to be the one to make those first 10 sales calls because then you understand the pattern of exactly what's going to happen.
And then you also have to be the one to show your team that you are there with them, working with them. You know, you have to prove to your team that you are a leader and that you know what you're doing for them to take you seriously. Because if you just give them that role and you aren't showing them that you are working as hard as you possibly can each day to lead that firm, they're just going to go leave to another person who has a better vision for them. So
Right.
you all have to, like, even once I place closers for like a new company, I'm still taking sales calls on a daily basis just to show them that, oh, Caden just closed like a bunch of deals today. You know, we really have to get on our shit to make sure that we keep up with his pace. Like, I've had multiple people tell me, like, how is Caden even alive right now with how much he works? Like, he's messaging 100 group chats a day. He's posting 8 times a day on Twitter. He's somehow making content, but he's also like closing all these, deals. Like, it's just like they need to see how hard I work, and then they will then try and match my work ethic.
Do you see yourself one day leading like a massive firm that has all of these as subsidiaries, or do you kind of
That's
like the
exactly my plan. So the next 1 or 2
cool?
years, I'm gonna start, like a massive holding company, and then probably buy and sell companies, and then also
Okay.
scale. That's probably the end goal, because I can just go into a company and find out exactly what needs to be cut to make it more profitable, and then what needs to be put in place to grow it,
Hmm.
um, immediately. So I think it would just be more fun to just get, go into that, because I've always thought, building companies is kind of like a video game. So I was number one in the world at that one game that I played. It's the exact same thing, just
Yeah,
keep scaling companies.
that's cool. Have you like been in the market yet? Are you like looking at companies, or are you like waiting for a bit
Not
more?
yet. I'm probably going to scale all of mine to like 1 million a month, and then I'll start to look into some other stuff. But probably in the next 2 years for that, for sure, is when I'll start to look into buying, and selling and things like that.
Okay, cool. Are you interested in anything that's outside like your kind of domain and like you as the ICP, or is there you kind of want to stay within that realm? What's like the
No,
most adventurous thing
I
you want to try?
most adventurous thing. I want to start like a local business.
Okay.
I don't have direct experience working with like a local service-based business, but I know that I can scale them immediately. Like, I was trying to find a cleaning company. I called 4 of the top ones in my area, and they didn't even get back to me. So I just started a call center as well. So I'm like, look, I could just scale any of these businesses by having a 24/7 call center and just making the experience good. Because obviously, I mean, yes, it is kind of hard to get the back end built out for a local business at scale. But if you can solve that, then every other moving piece should be easy. So, like, a lot of these massive local businesses, if they have like a young guy like me go in and just like switch everything up and make it run smoother, they will like 5 or 10x just, from having a new set of eyes. Because what a lot of these local businesses do is they use the same old marketing that they've done for years, or the same old sales process. They aren't open to new ideas, which is why their growth gets stuck.
Hmm.
If they have a new set of eyes that goes in, adds in these new AI features, adds in some new cool stuff, they will grow very, very quick. It's just some are open to that, but most aren't really open to it, really.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because I feel like there were sort of two previous cycles here for local business. It's a very, very interesting topic. But like there was like when websites became a thing, so all local businesses, small business needed a website, and then social media became a thing. They're like, okay, now we need like an Instagram.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's sort of where they stopped because now it's like, okay, but now you can have like an AI agent swarm calling people all day from data that you're crawling like
Yeah.
you can scale to infinity, and it's almost like handing like a toddler like a jet plane that they don't really understand, but like there is a
Yeah.
way to kind of meet in the middle there.
There is.
So that's interesting. So that's a really cool. So you want to find like local businesses in Vancouver?
Yeah, I want to find some maybe to partner with, or maybe start my own. I would probably look for like these large, like, although they are local businesses, but like corporate ones. So I could see myself starting like a corporate cleaning company, or maybe like a corporate roofing
Okay.
company or something. I'm going to
Hmm.
figure out exactly what I want based off probably if there's a large deal size and then contracts are recurring. I'll find out exactly which one that I want to start. But yeah, I mean, I strongly think that I can start any company I want and scale it, just because I have such a core, understanding of how the offer needs to be laid out. So I can just
Cool.
start there. Yeah.
And what do you like? What do you wish more people knew or understood about like this modern kind of world that we're in to kind of not just make it like better for them, but like better for everybody? Like, what would make the world a more interesting place to live in if more people were like X?
I really just wish that more people would take action in general. So I've had like old friends and stuff like that who I've given them the literal roadmap based off of my years of experience of, building companies. And this is exactly what I would do if I started over. And then I'll check in with them in 6 months and they're like, yeah, I haven't really found a good website template yet, or I haven't really found a good logo. And I'm like, you have one life. Like, I really
Yeah.
wish I could just do a broadcast to every person in the entire world and tell them, you have one life. There is no tomorrow. You need to start today. You need to have a sense of urgency. I see so many people who are just sleeping through life and they'll go to a 9 to 5, not shitting on the 9 to 5 in general, but they just go to work, come home, maybe have a beer, sleep, and then do it over and over. And then their entire life is over. Like
Yeah.
that's it. I really wish that people would take life more seriously and go for their goals because like, even if you shoot for a goal and fail, at least you tried. And in some cases, you will hit that goal. So I just feel like everyone should just try harder and just stop sleeping around and all that stuff.
Yeah, I love that answer. I fully agree. And like one thing I really wanted to explore with this podcast is like the concept of high agency. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to find high agency people. And there are you like when you see it obviously because like they're out there making content or building or doing shit. But what's interesting is like that they are just you are so different than your peers. And the thing is like why is that, or is it something that can be bootstrapped into somebody that is, like you said, like going home every day, just having a beer after work and like vegetating in front of Netflix?
It's really just the mindset. Like, even as I said earlier, like friends who I went to school with grew up in the exact same place. We have such vastly, our lives are not even remotely the same. Like, even though we grew up with all of the exact same stuff, we
Hmm.
all went our own paths. So, I mean, I feel like you just kind of have to have a want for it. You don't really start a company unless you have an end goal behind starting that company. I think most people who start businesses start it in the first place to get freedom and to have more time. But what I've seen, like a lot of these like San Francisco funded companies just working behind their office 12 hours a day, like, yes, it is really awesome to scale a company, but you are scaling a company to get more freedom, usually to have a family, to have kids. Like, the entire point of life is to have kids, in my opinion, and have a family. Like, that's why we're all doing this. I'm not starting companies. Well, actually, I do really love to start and scale companies. It's like fun for me. But like, the end goal is just to have like a great family and have great kids and then just go from there. Like, so even people who work a 9 to 5, I don't think that it's a bad thing. If you have a loving family and you have a great life, then like, that is the goal of life. That is the whole point. So I just feel like, yes, if it is your ultimate goal to scale a company and work like 14 hours a day or whatever it is and stay in San Francisco or whatever, that's fine. But I feel like you just need to identify the end goal that you want and then just do everything to reach that end goal.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Very good values. It's like I've seen a lot of these SF style people,
Yeah.
and I've spent a bit of time there, and it was like very. It's because it's so hyper competitive and so like monoculture.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of like they force themselves to think and act the same, whereas it's like you may not have those intrinsic incentives, but they sort of get like compressed into you. It's very interesting.
It is.
But I kind of like I definitely agree with your perspective. Like I optimize for lifestyle. I've
Yeah.
optimized for a great lifestyle. Like, but
Yep.
it's the kind of thing where people. I guess it's like when you get trapped in a lifestyle where you don't realize like this is not actually what you want. It's hard for people to see that.
There's a lot of breaking through moments where people will just be working a job that they hate, for example, and then their boss maybe just yells at them a little bit too much, and then they just leave their job and go live in like Bali like, there's
Yeah,
so
many
many
such cases.
cases where they have
Yeah.
a breaking moment and they're like, fuck this. I'm not doing this for my entire life. And then as soon as they make that choice to go for their dreams, their life gets exponentially better. And I've heard that so many times, like over and over.
Yeah, and there's fuck, I forget his name now. I think it was David Clark, but he was like 50 and he was like a professor, made, shitty professor's salary, didn't do anything. Like I think he was divorced and he just kind of snapped one day and he started two separate billion-dollar companies in his
Yeah.
50s.
Yeah.
And just like had a sick life after that. He had like one of the biggest yachts in the world. It is something like people can just kind of wake up to. And
Yeah.
that's sort of one message I want to like get out more for people is like you can just do things and you should just do things because there is like an entire world that will open up to you if you do things. I want to close off with a couple of fun questions here. It's just some like fun hypotheticals.
Yeah.
Okay. If you had to move to a new city tomorrow, you didn't know anyone, you had $0, no network, how would you make your first K in the next 3, 4 days?
I would, that is an interesting question. I would probably move to Dubai and then I would just go into every single office and then just say that I would work as a salesman on a commission basis. And then I would just go in there and close deals. That's probably what I would do immediately. Or if you had to stay in the exact same place where you were and maybe you didn't have access to these offices where you can just go and pitch yourself, just apply to any sales job, apply to any kind of local business sales job, go work as a door knocker, go work as a sales rep dialing, as a closer. Like if I lost all of my money today, I would be pretty much back to where I was very, very quick just because I understand that I can just get a sales job and then start a new company and then grow from there. But if I didn't have any experience at all, I would just get into sales because there are so many opportunities that will stem from knowing how to close people from scratch and make money from them.
Like, that's a great answer. Okay. And then last question is tell me about a time you had to bypass a gatekeeper or like break some sort of social norm or rule to get something done, like some like impossible moment that you engineered.
I have the example from earlier where I went in for like a gardener role and then I got like the front desk one. So I bypassed that person. The person who I was actually having an interview with, I asked to speak to their boss and then I went to their boss and that's how I pitched to work for there. But I would say like an impossible breakthrough. I feel like just having the ability to talk to people who are 2 or 3 times your age and make so much more money and than you and just be able to have like a normal conversation with them. Like they are all humans. We are all humans at the end of the day. So I just feel like having the skill to have confidence in yourself, even if you don't have money or have done a lot of cool things, is one of those things that will just carry you so far in life. And then one other super important thing that's kind of a sidetrack, but manifesting and pretending to be the person that you want to be is extremely powerful because eventually you will just end up being that person. So even before I moved to Vancouver and like got a car and got, you know, multiple companies that I'm growing, things like that. I always pretended that I was already doing that. I was like deeply envisioned where I was going to be. And I'm exactly where I knew that I would be. So just having like unbelievable confidence in your ability to like, I don't really care what happens. I could lose all of my cash, but I'll figure it out. That's kind of like the most critical mindset to have to just enjoy life and live a good life, in general, really.
Sick, sick. I love that answer. That's a great one to close on. Caden, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated the conversation. You can find Caden on x.com if you want to like pitch or plug any of the stuff that you have.
Yeah,
Be a
yeah,
great
yeah.
time.
Go there. So my name on Twitter is a little bit weird. It's like pipeline abuser because I use like sales pipeline. I'm not like an abuser. You can just go there and you can find all of my firms there. I guess that's probably the best place to start off with.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.